All right. Hey everyone, it's Kayleigh and Emmanuel. Welcome back. Happy Sunday. Yeah, it's great to have you here. Today we want to talk about quite a serious topic, something that we have been holding off for a while, but we think that it's now a good time to talk about it.
Or that it's never a good time, but that it's the time.
It's the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I met Kayleigh, I met her at a time when she went through quite a lot. And in our last videos, really, we always kind of touched on some aspects of it. But yeah, you were just going through a time when your parents just got divorced and you were living alone with your dad. And you had a really difficult time. And yeah, what can we share about today?
Yeah, well, there isn't an agenda on this, but I did have a conversation with my best friend yesterday, and she was saying that before we really met and spoke to each other, she thought that I had a perfect life and that I was fine and that everything was good for me. And obviously, since getting to know me, she can see more into my life, and she can see that there's a lot that I also that I'm thinking about and working through. And so with that, I wanted to share some more of my story here, because maybe it's helpful to someone else that they're not alone, and yeah, everyone has something, and yeah, this is my story. So I guess we can start. Maybe I can talk about what's on my mind right now, like these days, because a lot happened in my childhood. But recently I've been realizing that I didn't have the love in my childhood that most normal kids do. I was a neglected child, and like I'm only realizing that now. It's quite difficult to acknowledge. But yeah, when I was a toddler, I had spent a lot of time with my mum, and that was because my dad was very controlling. And I'll preface this with, I love my dad, despite what he's done. He's done bad things, but I do love him, and I pray for him. And if he's watching, I'm praying for him to make better decisions and, apologize. But I want to be honest here with what happened. So yeah, when I was a child, my father was very controlling, and me and my mum both shared a room, and like I would sleep in the bed with her because my dad took my room for whatever reason. I mean, he would say that he needs it for because he is awake in the night and mum needs to sleep. He kind of made it seem as if it was very practical, but I don't know why, but I did. So my whole life until I was like 20, I shared the room with my mum, and I didn't have my own room, but we kind of lived in that room, and we didn't have a big house. We'd kind of live walking on eggshells, because if we would move too much, then it might cause dad to be angry, to call mum down and tell her where to sit, and not let her move from that seat until he's finished lecturing her, like shouting, talking, telling her that she's ugly, calling her names, calling her stupid, telling her she's not good enough in so many different ways: work, spiritually, physically, emotionally, just.
And that would be constant, and it would go on for hours, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this was one part, and another part of my childhood was that I was very isolated from other people. I wasn't allowed to have friends over, and I didn't have any siblings with me. I had my brother and sister, but they lived with their mum. So I was alone a lot of the time. And then there would be days where I would sit by the window and I would just look outside. I wish that I was outside because I was sad being alone, and my mum was, what I now realise, she was very, very stressed. She had high levels of anxiety, and so she wasn't in a position herself to support me like she wanted to, and I know that she wanted to, and she didn't, as much as she could, and I can be so grateful for her being there now.
But during this time, she was also traumatized herself. So, yeah, she had to fight her own fights.
Yeah.
And you were then the one kind of like in the middle, also suffering yourself.
Yeah. I didn't know what was happening when I was younger. I knew that Daddy didn't play games with us, like we didn't do things together anymore. I mean, I didn't go on holiday since I was 4 or 5 years old. We didn't, like, anywhere. I mean, we didn't go on like a day trip. I don't mean abroad, we didn't do anything. I guess I don't want to make this too long, but yeah, my childhood was not very easy, and there are a lot of things which I realise now which were also happening to my mum, which has been very heavy for her to deal with, and it's not easy for me to realise that my dad has abused my mum in even more ways than I saw. I'd see him verbally abuse her, but also, in other ways, and I should probably speak with her before I share more detail on that, but yeah, that's something I've also come to terms with, and I've only really had, and then we had a big problem just before I left home, so let's just skip to when I'm an adult. But for my childhood, it was difficult. I didn't know everything that was happening. Then my parents got divorced, and then it was just me and my dad, and this is when I started to understand, or started to realise that something is wrong with him, because he was making very bad decisions, and he was also being very cruel towards me, and he would make me do things that I didn't want to do. I mean, even things like he made me record a conversation of him with his sister, with my aunt, and I had to put my phone on record, and it might seem so small, but it's just it's such a malicious thing to do, and it's not right. But there was something that he needed to give her, and I knew he wouldn't give it to her unless I went and did what he said, so I did it. It was really horrible, and if I didn't do what he wanted me to do, then I would start to get these hours of him shouting and being angry, and I wouldn't be able to leave. I would be woken up in the night, and I really got to a point where I was so exhausted that I realised something was wrong, and so I needed to move out. But the other problem is that before my parents divorced, I had taken out a loan for a car, which I then didn't buy this car because there was a lot happening. But by the time I wanted to move out, I was told by my dad that this money that I'd had, he had spent it on the house, whatever. Maybe he had debts that he was paying, I don't know, but he spent my money, and it was nearly £10,000 of money that I didn't have. So I couldn't leave. And then in the following months, he would say that I should help him because we're family, and that I should take out more debt to pay the bills for the house that obviously I'm still living in as well. And he refused to work, and I didn't want to. And like, he had a car that he could have sold, but he insisted that he shouldn't sell it, and long story, but I ended up for another 4 months taking out more debt. And within 4 months, I was in £20,000 of debt. And I had no job because he had told me that I shouldn't work, and I had quit my job in finance just before my parents divorced because I wanted to start a new career. So it was really surreal because I've never been in debt before that, and it just came out of nowhere. And I had £800 a month of bills that I needed to somehow pay, and he wasn't paying them. He wasn't paying anything. So yeah, this is the bit of the story that happened just before I met Emmanuel. Because when this came to when I realized that he had spent the money, I realized that I needed to get into church because I just needed God. And I wasn't allowed to go to church growing up. My dad didn't allow me to, even though I did want to. So I used like the last of the money in my bank account that was cash, and I drove to church, and it was this is the day that I met Emmanuel. And I mean, yeah, it was like the worst point in my life. And so yeah, since then, Emmanuel helped me to get a month of rent, and I was able to move out of home, my old home. And I got a job as a fitness trainer, and I had a few classes a week. I really didn't have enough to pay £800 of bills plus rent a month, but I called all my creditors, and then they were able to make it smaller, and then, you know, it hits my credit score. But at that point I was just happy to survive. So I broke even every month, and yeah, sold my car so that I could go to Bible school. I'd always wanted to go to a Bible school, and although I was in a lot of debt, I thought that it was kind of now or never. So yeah, so I went, and since then it's been a long healing journey of that. And my face. And I can thank God so much for helping me to get out of that environment, to start to understand what happened to me, to be able to enjoy life. And I just thank God that I can have this chance to heal, because not everyone gets that. I'm so grateful that I can have a healthy relationship and that Emmanuel's so supportive. Yeah, there's a lot in my life right now that is amazing and I'm really grateful for it. Yeah, I wanted to give some background for anyone who also is thinking about where they are right now.
I think as well, something that you are, like there's a lot of things that you're noticing now as you reflect. You wouldn't have 5 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to say, I lived in an abusive household. My father is abusing me and my mother. You would have tried to see, okay, there's something that's not really right, but let me do my part, let me be well, let me be a good child, and I trust God, one day everything will be okay. And you haven't seen the magnitude, and now you can see the abuse, the narcissism, the control, the anger, all those things you can see now, and it makes now sense what you have experienced in light of giving things the correct labels. And that's now helping you make sense of it. But back then, and like growing up, you were in that sense like very much confused about what is happening. And I think there are a lot of people that are going through the exact same thing still today. And not everyone has the access to knowledge around, okay, this is what's actually happening. Not everyone.
This is abuse.
This is abuse. Not everyone has access to someone who can tell them something's wrong with someone in your family, with your friend, with your partner. So, like, this is not right. But it has to be said, and stories have to be shared. Your story needs to be shared, and people need to hear what has happened. And I think only when you have the conversation, when you share the stories, one can relate, and one can also maybe see their own lives, what's happening to them, and also maybe what their action have as an impact on other people.
Yeah, it's true. I think something that I've learned since is that children don't know how to regulate their emotions, and they need their parents to teach them that. They need an adult to teach them that, and I wasn't taught that. But I guess there are a lot of other children who also are confused, because when you're a child, that's all you have. You have confusion. Something's wrong, but you don't understand what it is. And yeah, if you are confused about what's happening, talking about it honestly to someone, and yeah, just allowing yourself to be educated on abuse and being open to that word, because it sounds very strong, but a spade is a spade and abuse is abuse, and it's way too common. It's sad, but it is common, and yeah, we have to protect ourselves, and we have to help the people who are abusive to learn that what they're doing is wrong. We can only do that if we realise that it's wrong and we take a stand against it.
One thing I'm noticing as well, one thing I've learned as well, is to be really gracious with you, for instance, with like being gracious and patient with the journey that you're going through. Like only this morning, I think you shared that there was like a noise yesterday, and usually when there was like a noise, when something was happening, there was like a bang or so, you would relate it to something your dad would do, and you would get very fearful. And it's something that's really ingrained into your life, into your brain, and it takes a long time to like unlearn and really not only in your brain but also in your body to start feeling safe in a safe environment, because you have been in this other environment for so long, and only now you are kind of finding there's like small other pieces that yet have to be worked through. But even then, like patience, be patient with yourself, and I have to also be patient. And like when you, for example, say, oh, when there was a bang or so, it was not you. I thought something was wrong, but no, it was just something that was in your mind. Like, it was not me. It was something that was in your mind from past experience. And for me to not to take it like personally or to be offended, even in the slightest way, but to understand. And I think that's something we have to as well do to those that have been affected and that have suffered, to be very patient.
Yeah, thank you for being patient.
Yeah, I mean, I have my own struggles.
Yeah, it's enough for one video.
There's a lot else that I guess we can talk about this topic.
Did you have something else?
Not for now, no. But yeah, again, I think the encouragement is to be open, to look out for people that might be in those kind of situations, because no one even thought that Kayleigh was, not even her best friends, thought Kayleigh was in an abusive household.
No one knew at school or anywhere.
Yeah, so like, maybe take this as an example to be really mindful of what's happening, like, and ask good questions and just be alert to things that might not go how they should.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. I know this is a tough topic. Well done. You're very brave.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you have any questions about that, if you are experiencing something similar, have experienced something similar, we are learning, Kayleigh's learning a lot. So do reach out to us and we gladly talk to you about it.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
See you next Sunday.